Welcome to Financial Garden Live, where we plant financial seeds every week so you can grow in our 6 areas of focus. Emotions and money, entrepreneurship, budgeting, banking, debt fundamentals, and investing. I'm your host, Tasha Danielle. Let's dig in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Financial Garden Live. I have a guest with me this week. Angie E is joining me to talk about investing. So let me share a little bit about Angie before we dig in. She is an accounting professional. She has nearly a decade of experience in accounting, and she is the founder of Financial Lioness. And Financial Lioness is a personal finance website that is on a mission to close the wealth gap, and specifically for people of color, and specifically again for Black people, by educating them on ways to increase their income, saving their money, and investing, which is why she's here with us today, and also creating passive income streams. And that's one of Angie's goals, and she's journeying that while she's doing that through Financial Lioness. And when she is not planting financial seeds and educating us all, she is spending time with her husband and son, and she is managing her many streams of income. And she's about to add one more to that when she drops her ebook called Everyday Investor. Hopefully I got it right.
Investing for Everyday Investor.
Okay. And that's going to be dropping in a few weeks. So welcome, Angie, to Financial Garden Live.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on the show tonight. I'm definitely honored. I think that, like Financial Garden has said, I'm very passionate about the world of finance, the world of wealth management, building those assets, building generational wealth.
Yes, and we're gonna have a lot to talk about today. So if you're watching this and you are interested in investing, don't know how to get started with investing, this is the episode for you. So make sure you're sharing this video and tagging people that you have heard who's interested in investing. And we're also going to be talking about generational wealth, and I'll get her take on it because I talked about it last week. So again, tag and share and drop some comments for us and questions as we're talking. I will pull them up on the screen as we're going through. And without further ado, let's dig in. First, I want to know, before we start talking about investing, what was your aha moment that led you to start Financial Lioness?
My moment was pretty much just kind of working as a young 16, 15-year-old in high school. And I would say when my father passed, I'm the oldest of 3 girls. And so when my father passed, I had watched my mom kind of take the reins when it came to financial management. And so when I started to, when I was old enough to start to be able to work, I realized I needed to make money and just be a little more secure. I didn't know a ton about money at that time, obviously, but I at least knew that I needed to have some sense of financial security, especially since at this point in time, I'm the oldest and I have 2 younger sisters who are looking up to me. I really wanted to make sure that I set a really good example.
Okay. And then you got in your career, and I know Financial Lioness came about, and you have multiple streams of income, and I know you are really into investing. Obviously, you have an ebook that you're writing discussing that. So let's just jump right into that. So for people who want to get started with investing, some of the common questions that I am asked is, how much money do I need? Where do I start? And a whole list goes on. So my first question is, how much money should someone have when they're thinking about starting investing? And maybe you can share how you got started in stock investing.
Yeah, so it's funny because that's literally a portion of my book that talks about how much you should invest. And so I really did not want to ever put an amount out there because I feel like everyone is in different financial situations. You can invest with as little as $5, just like you can invest with as much as $10,000. It really doesn't make any difference. The point is, it's about consistency. So when I started investing, I actually started in college. So I had went to school for free. I won $250,000 to go to school. So every semester, I know it's crazy, because I was actually doing like a scholarship contest, and I was doing it to win a free refrigerator. I didn't get the refrigerator, but I won all this money for school. So I won in the end. But so I would get a refund check every semester. And I was like, what do I do with this money? Like, I don't want to just have this, trick it off at the mall and, buy all these clothes and stuff like that. Baby fat, apple bottom. No, I'm not buying it.
Apple bottom.
Girl. So I was like, I need to figure out a home for this money. And it's funny, I was also majoring in finance at the time. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take some of this money and open up a brokerage account. And I remember I had opened it first with American Mutual Funds, and I bought a bunch of mutual funds. I pretty much had kept it in there for probably about a year or two. And then, of course, as I was keeping it in there, that's when the market tanked. And I got nervous. And because I was unknowledgeable and inexperienced, I actually pulled out my money. And I actually pulled it out when I had lost money. So that was my aha moment and my first experience with investing. But from that point on, after learning my mistake of pulling the money out, because obviously from that time on, the market skyrocketed, and I could have made that money back fivefold had I just left it in there. And this was like a simple $1,000. It wasn't much money, maybe like I think 1,000 or 1,200, I can't remember. But just knowing what I know now, I'm like, I definitely keep my money in the market at all times now, especially if I'm thinking about long-term goals. I'm going to keep it in the market.
Okay, so that is a key. So the first tip I was asking, if you're just joining, make sure you're tagging people, is how much money should you use to get started with investing? And Angie just explained she took her refund checks from college instead of balling out like I know a lot of college students do. She actually put that into a mutual fund. And Angie's philosophy is that really you can get started investing with $5 or $10. So just start where you are. And I do like that, because a lot of people feel like I need a lot of money to get started with investing. And you said what's key is to be consistent. So that was tip number one. So let's move on to tip number two, because I really want to make this digestible for people who feel like they're overwhelmed. And you think about the headlines, right? You heard you saw the headlines earlier this year when the pandemic first started. It was like everyone's losing money in the stock market, and then a few weeks later, you heard everybody's making all this money in the stock market. So it can be confusing on what should I do? Should I invest in the stock market or not? So you mentioned you got started with mutual funds. What made you start with mutual funds?
So I got started with mutual funds just because when I had went to the banker, he told me that this was a good investment from where the market was at the time, I should say. So, stocks were just like up and down, very volatile, very tumultuous at the time. So it wasn't a good idea to necessarily dump a bunch of money in stock, not knowing where the market would bottom out. With mutual funds, it was more like that slow and steady growth, where, you would still be able to make a little bit of return. And then you would also not really lose a lot if the market were to go down even further. So that was kind of my first, idea. But then after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a classic, right, in the world of money, he basically broke down and said, you're never going to get rich off of mutual funds. And when he said that, I started, because I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad like 5 times now.
Okay.
And most recently in March again, literally. And I think I read it so many times because I needed these concepts to stay focused on what my financial goals were. So I started with mutual funds, but then I started investing in stock as soon as I got my first job out of college. That was the first time that I started investing in stock, was out of college.
Okay, and what tools? So I know you did mutual funds and you switched it up because you read a book and it was like kind of going against that. So if someone has $5 or $10, where can they go? What app, what website, what financial institution should they go to get started?
I'm glad you asked. And in my book, I list about 5 different options. But I will start with probably Acorns. So Acorns is like where you can get into brokerage accounts with just the change in your wallet, the change in your bank account. It's not a whole lot of money, but it's enough to get that person their feet wet, right? So with Acorns, out of college, they didn't have Acorns. But I started to learn about them later on. And what you do is you say you have $2.50, you round it to $3 and you take that 50 cents and you invest it. So my brokerage account, probably from, I want to say 2015 all the way till now, I've just been investing in Acorns. They just take the change, they round up my dollar. You can round it up times 2. So instead of the 50 cents, it'll be $1. These are just easy ways. The other one that's one of my favorites is called Stockpile. Stockpile is great for me because it is where you can buy fractions of stock. So maybe you don't want to spend $3,200 on one share of Amazon. You can buy $500 worth of Amazon or maybe $100 of Amazon. It's still Amazon. If that stock goes up, so does your $100. So these are good alternatives. These are what we call micro investing. They're not like your traditional, E-Trade, Scottrade, Fidelity accounts where you need all this big form of money. I do list those in my book. Those are for people who are maybe in a better position to have a ton of money to invest and do all of those things with. But this Stockpile and Acorns is really for my everyday people. They're for kids. A lot of them have custodian accounts. So my son has a Stockpile account where I bought him shares of Disney. So those are things that I've done where I've been able to provide some sort of, I would say, way to get into the investment game without feeling like so overwhelmed because, I didn't come from money, so I only have so much money to invest.
Right, and that's for a lot of us, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I want to encourage people to not get overwhelmed with thinking they need a ton of money to get started. And I do often suggest Acorns for people when they're first getting started. When I am teaching students, so Financial Garden teaches students kindergarten through 12 about money, and we look at the Acorns app because it's that very thing is you can take pennies and round it up. What I personally use Acorns because of that reason. And I like the fact that you can set automatic payments.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like out of sight, out of mind. And it's just like you can have a $10 a week, $10 a month on top of rounding the change up. So if you're not paying attention, this is not thousands of dollars. And you can see where this is going. And another thing I like about Acorns is the videos that they have to
Yes,
really teach you about investing.
it
And
does.
yeah,
It does. And it's helpful because people who are intimidated by investing, they want to know more about investing. They want to know what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. Obviously, there's no right or wrong answer because with investing comes risk. But the point of the matter is that the return over the long run is still greater than not doing it. And I think that that's what's important about accounts like Acorns is that they provide you with a way to invest your money on an educational way. And you start to get educated on those options.
and Stockpile, I have not heard a lot about Stockpile. I heard about it recently, but not as much as Acorn. So you want to share a little bit more about Stockpile? Because I know you mentioned that you can buy a portion of Amazon through Stockpile.
So like right now on my Stockpile account, I've purchased Amazon, Google. I have obviously Disney for my son because he has his own Stockpile account with my name on it since he's a minor. And then I also recently, my husband wanted us to buy Netflix. And then, so those were some of the things that we have in our Stockpile account. Now, what I love about Stockpile too is that you can continue to contribute. You know, one of the reasons why I got caught up in Stockpile is because I believe in what they call buy utility, invest in, or I should say rent luxury, buy utility, where if I buy something, like I don't want to just be the consumer of it. I want to also purchase the stock. So like my vice is Starbucks, for example. There is not a day, Tasha, where I go by that I don't go to Starbucks. It is actually very sad. But then, so then what I did to justify me going to this drive-through every single day, global pandemic or not, is that I was like, you know, I need to buy their stock. So I literally, that's how I got started with Stockpile, because I was like, where can I find, you know, this like application where I can buy stock and buy it easy? That's when I went to get on Stockpile, and then I started buying Starbucks stock. So every time I would go to Starbucks, if I load up my Star card, $30, I buy $30 of Starbucks. If I do $50, I buy $50 of Starbucks. That was my way of saying, okay, don't just be the consumer, own some equity in this company as well.
Yes, be an owner. So that goes right into tip number 3, or my question number 3. What I was going to say is, how do I pick stock? If I'm want to get started with investing today after watching this live, how do I pick individual stock, or should I consider doing index funds or something else?
So I'm never going to tell you what to invest. And I say that in the book too, as well. Everyone is different. Some people are the slow and steady. Some people are like, I want to get rich in like 5 years or something. What I will say is always diversify your portfolio. So for example, like I invest in stock, but I also invest in mutual funds. I invest in mutual funds, but I also invest in REITs. So I also have a real estate crowdfunding account through Fundrise, which is another really cool company. So I am very much about diversifying your wealth, because if one goes down, you still got the others. Yes. And on top of it, everything is for different reasons. So like, for example, when I started doing crowdfunding, I actually started this year. So I got a bonus in March for my job. So I took money from my bonus and I was like, you know what? And this is before lockdown. So I didn't even really understand what was going to happen in the world. It was literally like a week before we got our bonus, and the next week we went on lockdown in Minnesota. So it was like, oh, the world is ending. So
that's what it felt like back then too.
Yeah. Yes. So I took that money. I was like, you know, I'm going to take a portion of this and just try real estate crowdfunding. I think I took like $2,000, nothing big or anything. And I was like, I'm going to just invest in this. And I love it. I'm addicted to it. You can start off with literally $250 and then roll all the way up. And you just contribute. Like my goal is to always contribute $1,000 every quarter. And then if not more. So right now I'm due for another $1,000 for this quarter, because I already did Q3. So those are the things that I continuously do to make sure that I'm diversifying my portfolio. So maybe I'll put $1,000 on Fundrise, then buy like maybe $500 worth of stock in Stockpile, then maybe put, you know, an extra $200 in Acorns. This is my way to build different accounts and brokerage accounts. So that way, when I look back on this, I have a very wide variety of things that I invest in. Because I also was like, I don't know if I want to be a landlady yet. So this is my way of investing in real estate without getting my hands dirty.
And I was just about to say, can you explain to people what REITs are? REITs.
Yeah. So REITs, which is real estate crowdfunding as well, is kind of a way for you to kind of put your money in a pool with others. And what you're going to do is then they may pick a project. So like, for example, a couple of my projects that I was pooled in with on my real estate crowdfunding account are apartment buildings, commercial property, and it's across I shouldn't say the Twin Cities, it's across the nation. So basically there's a real estate company, an apartment building that I'm investing in that's all the way in Atlanta, Georgia. So this is where they take investor money and they say, okay, we have this project. a couple of my projects have already closed. So that means we're starting to hit the residuals where we'll start getting dividends and, start getting some of the appreciation money for that. So these are good ways on how to invest in the long term, because what I love about Fundrise is they really ask you got to be invested for like 5 years. You can pull your money out obviously before 5 years, but they say like, we really recommend keeping your money in here for 5 years to get the full benefit. And that's what investing is. It's not some quick get rich scheme. It's about making sure that you're in it for at least 5 to 10 years to really see your growth and return on assets.
I like the benchmarks that you just gave, 5 to 10 years before you see return, because I do explain to people that investing in stock is not gambling. You don't go in and put someone on red and like you expect like, oh, I should make 10,000, 20,000 in a day. You can do that through day trading. Like
yes,
day trading
exactly. And that's not what this is about. Yes.
I'm like, day trading is completely different from just saying I want to invest for the long term. And I think going back to what you said, when I said how much money should you do in tip one, how much money should you use when getting started in tip one, it all goes back to what your goals are. And you also put another benchmark for yourself. Your goal is I want to invest $1,000 a quarter. Yeah. So I really like the fact that as you're talking, you are giving some like notable benchmarks for people who really want to get started and don't know how. And all these Acorn, Stockpile, REITs, and Fundrise, these are sites that you can go to right now after the live. And they're not sponsoring this video one day.
They should, because I talk about them quite a bit even on my IG page. So that's right.
But this is something that you all should check out. If you said since March and you've seen everyone saying or hearing everyone post and say they made all this money from investing in stock, and some people be lying. I just want to say that. I'm a side note. Like someone was telling me that, like, I do not really like broadcast. Like, if you don't know who I am, if I'm out and about, which is hard now because coronavirus, but I don't really say like, oh, I'm a CPA, or you talking about. I'm just like, hey, what's going on? And oh, I'm making all this money off of Robinhood, and look how much, like, not look, but like, I don't know what it was. They didn't really show me their phone, but they were like, look, I'm like making all this money like from my phone or whatever. And then as you talk to them, I'm like, oh, okay, like, are you actually just looking at your stock go up? Or are you like, selling? Because that's the only way you're going to actually make money is when you sell your stock. You don't make money every day as it's going up unless you actually do something about it, right?
Exactly.
And I'm like, wow, exactly. Money. I'm like, what about those capital gains though? Like, what are you doing for tax planning during headlights? And I'm like,
and I'm glad that you point that out, because a lot of people, so that's another thing, like so I have a financial advisor, because with all of this is my own personal money that I use when I'm investing. Now I have other stuff set up, like I have a cash value life. I have my 401k, a Roth. Those are other assets that I have where there's kind of like the slow and steadies of the world. Because when you talk about capital gains, that's a very good thing that people need to be aware of, is all of these things will take some of your tax. Uncle Sam will be right here like this.
Yes.
Like, so now the rate is lower than obviously a W-2 or something, depending on what you make, of course. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's still going to be taxed. Whatever you make, there's that profit is going to be taxed. And that's why they actually say, if you have a job, for example, and you have the option to have a 401k through your job or some form of like retirement plan, because if you're a teacher, you may have a 403b and, or pension or whatever, because my husband has a pension. Go with that first, go with those things first before you get into some of these other things, because there's steps to this, right? So like, I'm not going to necessarily take all of my money and dump it into stocks. I'm going to diversify. That's part of diversification. is also making sure that you save for retirement, because at some point we're all going to get old and want to stop working. Some of us stop now, but that's a whole different story for a different day.
Now.
So, but I would definitely say that, if you're in a position where you have those retirement accounts or any sort of form of account that, like HSAs, things like that, those are good ways to invest your money and put it aside for things, because stuff happens throughout life and you don't want to rely on like your stocks as your form of asset. Part of having assets is having a wide variety of things. So.
And we have said so much. So if you have any questions for Angie or myself, make sure you leave them in the comments. And we kind of jumped ahead to like my tip number 5, but we'll go back.
It's okay.
Tip number 4, I want to talk about, we talked about passive income. You want to work, you want to have money coming in so you can stop working, you don't work forever. A common myth is that, I'm going to invest in the stock market and then next year, well, you could if you had invested in Kodak from when they had nothing, or invested in Amazon, but it took years for Amazon, and Kodak just went out of nowhere. But my thing with that is always, okay, like when people say, how can I want to invest so I can have extra income or multiple, like have that as another income stream.
Yes.
So is there a way for me to invest now and say like next year have some type of return that I'm seeing that I can actually pocket? How does that work?
So I would definitely say that with investing, so first of all, let's take a step back. So with investing, it depends on how much you invest to get the type of return that you seek, right? Mm-hmm. And most people do not have that type of money. So like, say I have like, I'm rich and I just have $100,000 sitting around. If I could invest that, I would probably make about maybe $5,000 to $10,000 at the most, right, in passive income back to me on an annual basis. That's how much it takes to make passive income from investing. It's not like I put in 100, so I get 100. It's not like that. I wish it was like that, trust me, but it's not. So that is not how return on investments work. You really have to kind of compound your money over time. Most people, that's why you start all these accounts, right? So you continue to contribute. Maybe you contribute for the next 5 to 10 years. Now you're starting to see some of these income streams that you have produced in assets now come back as passive income to you. So if I put in money in my real estate crowdfunding account, let's say I get out the way up to in 5 to 10 years, I put in $50K, I'm starting to see 5,000 come back to me in passive income. That's just real estate. What if I do the same thing for Acorns? Now I got another 5,000. Now we're up to 10,000 in passive income. Then with Stockpile, put another 50,000. Now I got another 5,000. Now I have 15,000. So that's how this stuff works. It's about making sure that you contribute to these different pots at these different given points of time so you can get the passive income. And I was going to touch on one thing. I don't know if you're going to ask me that about passive income in the sense of side hustling, because I am also a side hustler. Okay. And I do freelance graphic design. So one of the things that I have always been taught is, well, I should take that back. I became a side hustler kind of by default. I was actually a marketing major for 3 years, and then the economy crashed. And I was like, just kidding. I'm going to major in something that gets me a job. So the summer of 2009, I took my first finance class 1 year before graduation. And I have been going slow and steady, but that part of me never really died because I've always been a creative at heart. That's kind of who I am. So I went back to and got my graphic design certificate. I found like a quick program and then I did it. And then I've been freelancing ever since. So I bring about probably $5,000 to $7,000 a year in passive income from freelancing. Obviously I could probably do more if I didn't have a day job, but that's really good money that I use. And I usually reinvest it into some of these assets that I talk about. So that's how I'm able to hit my $1,000 per quarter on my REITs and things like that.
I love it because I talk side hustles come up in every conversation I have with someone, every guest on Financial Live, because
That's on your way to freedom. Yes.
and it's like you're like, if I don't have enough money to invest, or I don't even have enough saved, like how can I do it? And it's like, well, you got to get more money coming in. And so, like you just said, I do graphic design, and I'm investing that extra $5,000 to $7,000 a year. When people have side hustles, I'm like, use it. You need to have a goal. Open up a separate account, checking account specifically for that side hustle money. Otherwise, it won't even benefit you. So whether the extra money you want to have coming in is to go to pay off debt or to invest, open up a separate checking account so you don't blend it in with everything, and you can hold yourself accountable for your goals. So I'm glad you share that, because some people may be watching like, I just don't have enough money to invest. Even the $5 and $10, they may like sound like that's not even worth me even trying. So people really do have that mindset, like that defeated mindset. So
yeah,
like,
and I completely hear them. I think what people have to do though is ask themselves, like, how long do you want to struggle for? Because I'm not even trying to like get on anyone and say you need to have a high income. I have a decent income, but I don't even think it's that crazy or anything. I think it's enough to take care of me and my family and stuff. You know, me and my husband, we both work. But I think what you have to remember is that when there's a will, there's a way. And also, if you're like, say you're muddled with like debt, for example, this is not the time to do that. The time to do that is when maybe you have a good handle on your debt, and then you can say, okay, now I can afford to budget my money to the point that I have a budget for this investing. I know it's stressful, but that's why I say, like, one of the things that you have to do is get yourself where the priority is. You know, if it's paying off debt, then budgeting, then investing. I say that all the time. Budget, save, invest. That is the 3 levels that you have to go through. You cannot skip to investing if you don't save or you don't budget. That's just not going to work. So
no, that's true. I do agree with that statement. You need to have a handle on your money before you start putting it into any type of investment.
mm-hmm.
Whether it's real estate and REITs and stocks or whatever. I would say I want to just jump back to, we were talking about how to invest for passive income. And I like the fact that you brought up the analogy of, it's going to take a lot of money to get to have $5,000 or $10,000 a year coming in. So one way I just want to share with people is like, you look for stocks that have dividends that come back in. That's one way people they create passive income through stock investing. In Angie's example, it takes a lot of money to really get passive income back from dividends. So like, I think Coca-Cola is a strong, I'm going to say old company, but usually it's a strong historical companies that pay dividends. So I think Coca-Cola is one of them as an example. They pay $10 every year for one stock that you have. So yeah, if you have one stock, you have $10 a year. So you need a lot of stock to really see that dividend return come every year. So that's one example. So if you say, I want to start investing to have extra money coming in right away, then investing in the stock market, you really want to look into day trading. That's not just for the average person that may luck up and get lucky on a stock that happens to skyrocket. That doesn't happen every day. So,
no, it doesn't.
So that you really have to, get involved with stock trading, day trading. And I will say that a good resource is Tela Holcomb, Tela Holcomb. She does so many master classes and online courses about day trading. I just see her content, and I do like, and she's been on countless TV shows talking about like how to teach people about day trading. So if you're interested in that, that is one avenue one resource you should check out. So the last thing I want to talk about for investing, because we kind of hit on it already, is what should you consider as far as taxes when you're investing? We talked about capital gains, so I guess we can kind of maybe cover that again, or is there any that people should consider?
I would definitely say so so one of the things that I've been really focused on is lowering my taxable income this year, so that any income that I make in any of these endeavors that I have, it's not even realized when it comes to time for taxes. So one of the things that I have been very specific on is maxing out my 401k, for example. That's a clean, 19,500 off the table, where it goes straight into my retirement account and it lowers my taxable income, because I have had situations in the past where we've owed the government money because of my investing or things like that. Now, you actually don't pay taxes until you withdraw. So as long as your money is in that, it's fine and you're not going to pay any taxes. But the minute you pull it out of there and it's in some savings checking account, they're going to be like, oh, looks like income. So therefore, that's when Uncle Sam will be there with his hand out to get you on those capital gains. And I believe it's about 20% flat rate. But the point I'm trying to say is that, if you are trying to figure out ways, I would definitely say read a lot of investing books as well, because a lot of those will point you in the right direction on which assets are not going to be taxed. For example, like a Roth, for example, is a good one. You're investing in your retirement, but it's after tax money. So even if you pull it out, it's still not going to hit you the same way like a 401k would, because that's pre-tax dollars. So.
And I want to drop my Roth IRA tip, because I always tell people who have small businesses and they have kids, I'm like, pay your kid. If you're going to hire your children as employees, open up a Roth. There's no age limit to having a Roth IRA. And I can't remember the contribution limit off the top of my head, but that money goes in and you can take out the contributions at any time. It's just the earnings that you make in the Roth IRA that you can't take out. So if you put it in, let's say the max is 5,000 and every year you put in 5,000, you can take that 5,000 out anytime. But let's say you hit it big and 1 year you get, let's say, a 50% return, and then you done it. You can take that 5,000 out and let that 5,000 that you grew just continue to just compound, right? Mm-hmm. So Roth IRA is I'm glad you mentioned that, Angie, because that's a really good way to think about taxes as you're investing. And opening a Roth IRA is really simple, and you can do it online. And it's just really, people think Roth and IRAs, retirement, what's the benefit to it? The tax benefit of it, and you can take the contributions out anytime, and you can pick the funds that you invest in. So I personally use Vanguard. No one's sponsoring this, but I my Roth, and it's just something and it's videos on there again that can explain like what this fund means. You can see what the average return on these various funds are as you're picking it out for your Roth, and you can do this for your children.
Exactly. So that's the thing. It's definitely something that, we have. And then I would also bring up the fact that so my son, we do have a 529 on him, but I want to be very careful about this, because there's kind of mixed signals when it comes to 529s, because a lot of people feel like, well, what if my child doesn't go to college? Those are real things. The best part about a 529 is it can be, transferred over. And then now recently they've said that you can take out up to $10,000 a year for tax for student loans, for example. So say, I don't know, 18 years, I should say 15 because my son is 3. So 15 years from now, my son's like, you know what, Mom, I want to move to LA and become a music producer. I don't actually want to go to college. I'll be like, well, first I might say, we'll go to music school. But in case he doesn't, for whatever reason, I may transfer that to my sister's kids, or a niece or a nephew, or somebody who's getting a master's or a PhD program. Those are ways on how you can do that. And then even with us, maybe by then we'll still owe student loans. Who knows? So then I'll take out that money and then pay myself back the money that I gave to my son. So there are different ways on how you can get around that. But like what Tasha said, I really like that idea of a Roth. I'm actually going to try to max out. Me and my husband, we both have one. I'm going to max out mine first this year, and then we're going to start to spill into my husband's, just because we've been so diligent about his student loan debt that we we don't really have extra income for necessarily his Roth to be filled all the way, but it's still a way for us to at least get some funds in there, because like Tasha said, it is very good to have, at least you can take out the principal and not feel like, oh my gosh, I have to like, keep this money in.
Yeah. So I think these are really good tips. I'm going to do a quick recap of them. Like tip number 1, we talked about how much should you put in an investment account or put into stock when you're first getting started. And Angie said it depends on your goals and what your money is looking like. You can start investing with $5 or just spare change with acorns. We talked about that. So that's moving into step 2. Like, how do I get started once I figure out how much money I have to invest? Check out sites like Acorns, Stockpile. You can become a partial owner in the big stock like Google or Amazon. And you can be like Angie and invest for your child as well with a custodial account in Acorns and Stockpile. Also check out REITs. That's REITs. If you want to get started with real estate, but you don't want to be a landlady, like Angie said. I'm a landlady. It's not too bad, but I got so many stories about real estate. That's a whole other
I'll have to tap him on the shoulder because I'm still debating whether we should go into 2021 for sure.
Yeah, but like this, how to get started in a fun ride. So, and then going into tip number 3, which was, I forgot. I know number 4 was about the passive income and everything, but tip number 3 was, how do I pick the stock, right? And Angie was saying that she doesn't want to just be a consumer in Starbucks. She wants to be an owner. So she was like, okay, that's
some equity in that.
Yeah, so that's one of the ways
not what you use. Yes.
So how do you
Target? Invest in Target.
So how do you pick stock? That's a great way to start. Is where do you spend your money? Is one way. Don't go off speculation or headlines. Just start with, I always suggest, like Angie said, she's not telling you what to put your money in because nobody truly knows. It's all speculation, but you can start with where you spend your money. And then if you are using something like Acorns, you can kind of start to learn a little bit more about stocks as you go along, but start with what you know and what you see growing and what you can truly afford. Going back to number 1. Number 4 is, how can I create actual passive income from stock investing? And Angie really broke that down with, you need to have a lot of money if you really want to have it come $15,000 extra a year. You may need to invest like $150,000 to see that return with dividends or in REITs come through. So investing, from what we're talking about today, not day trading, really is slow and steady, and for the long term. You can get lucky here and there, but if you really want like big returns quick and fast, that's day trading, and we're not talking about that here. And number 5 number 5 is thinking about taxes. When you see that big growth in your account and you cash it out, you should consider your taxes, because you are going to probably have to pay at least 20% on that capital gain. And you should consider a Roth IRA or HSA and max out your 401k for tax benefits. So I just ran through that really fast. So those are the 5 tips. So we have a few more minutes. Let's talk about Black wealth, generational wealth. That is a very hot topic right now because of everything that's going on in our country. And before I even ask you the first few questions, you already mentioned about your son. You're thinking about him already, his future, his financial future already at the age of 3. You have him investing in Acorns and StockRise. What else are you investing in for him right now?
So like I said, the 529, he has that. I have thought about, like, once we do jump into real estate, putting the place in his name. So like, those are little things that I really want to start to manage, is have, whether it's rental property or things like that in his name. I really strongly believe in Black generational wealth. I think it is the biggest cause for some of our disparities in this country. It ricochets into everything from how we get access to food, to healthcare, to everything. It's because of money. And so I just really want to make sure that I'm educating our community, our Black community, as to what they need to do. I'm from the Twin Cities, grew up, born and raised in Minneapolis, north side of Minneapolis. I am very, very much passionate. And when George Floyd, that situation affected me in so many different ways. It affected me because, one, I have a Black son. And number two, I'm from Minneapolis. So I know what it's like to be there and to live over there. And number three, I was just pissed. I mean, I was just angry. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it.
Like, that's why I started laughing. It's not funny, but you like,
yes.
Pissed. So
I was pissed. I mean, I was just like, I was literally like, get me out of this place where it's like and to hear some of the stuff that we've been hearing over the year and everything that's been happening, because George Floyd is one of many, many people who this has happened to. I think it just touched me because it felt like a psychopath was like killing him. And, because you got to be a psychopath to some degree to hear someone say that they can't breathe and still continue on with what you're doing. So I think for me, it angered me, but it angered me more because I don't like how people look at Black people sometimes. I don't like how they treat us. I don't like how they demean us, how they disrespect us. And I feel like part of it is because they always think like, oh, we have an upper hand because we have these resources, we have this stuff. This is how this country was established. You have to remember, it's like, to enslave someone was not just enslaving them like physically, it's enslaving them financially, it's enslaving them mentally, it's enslaving, and it's compounding on your generation after generation after that. I mean, they said it's going to take 228 years, Tasha, to close the wealth gap between Blacks and whites in America. I want to start this right now. I want to continue to contribute because this is my passion in life. It's not just about getting richer. It's about all of us getting richer together, because I really, truly believe that is part of there's many, right? Because there's a lot of stuff out here that we need to fix, but this is one very specific one that I really want to hone in on because it's very much important to me and to the cause very much. So
I agree, per usual, as I've been saying a lot. But the so many things I can't even get. I got so many things going through my mind. I'm trying to take a pause so I can actually speak what's going through my mind right now. But it was designed like mentally to keep us in a certain place, right? And so I get frustrated, just like you got really passionate about it. Because people are saying like we weren't taught these things, and I'm really doing everything to change it, which is why pre-COVID, I was directly in the classrooms, like I want to teach kids about money now, and people would tell me like, oh, maybe you should start with adults or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm starting with kids. They need to know it because that seed needs to be planted with them as early as possible.
Yeah.
So they know, like I don't have to have this certain money mindset, even though they don't know what that is, but they have exposure to what these things means. And so I think that if you're watching this, if you have kids, and how do you break that, right? Last week I got frustrated because I was saying people think like they posted memes saying these LLCs or whatever over Gucci and Prada, or instead of buying those Jordans, you should have bought this. That's shaming people. That's really not being impactful. You know what I mean? When you put that out there, give somebody a resource. And
how many of those people that are doing them actually follow by example? Because we can go into that too. I know a lot of people who will say, don't be buying Gucci, but you're not investing in real estate either. You're not investing your money in the stock market.
But then they'll be the same people that actually is like trying to show their like red bottom hat or their red bottom shoes or like.
And it's funny because we can go into that, but I don't even think that's a direct effect of being like without. Okay. When you're without, the first thing you are excited to do when you get a little bit is to feel good about it. Right. And that's why like people used to make fun of like people during tax season, like, oh, when it's tax season, child, because people got these big old TVs and new cars and stuff. But it's like, do you know when you like struggle for a long time and then you get this little bit, you want to feel something. And that's why I'm like, I don't want to shame anyone. I just want to say, hey, such and such, Why don't you take half of this, go and enjoy yourself, and then take the other half and invest this?
Yeah,
It's about balance, right?
it's about balance. And I say, when I talk about paying off all the debt that I did, I had rewarded myself each time along the way. It wasn't just like cold turkey. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Because,
Did
like, okay, we pay off everything, we invest all this money, we never even got to enjoy it. We die tomorrow, get hit by a bus, then what?
right. I always recommend a balance, right? Like when we're
Yes.
talking, I don't tell people like, oh, you need to be debt free before you can invest. No,
Exactly. No, you don't. And in fact, that's actually worse. That's why, I know people not gonna like me for saying this, but I don't necessarily agree with Dave Ramsey sometimes for
yeah,
the specific reason. Investing is about time. Time is a big component of investing. The sooner, the better. If you're spending all this time, like, I'm not saying don't make a plan for your debt. I'm just saying split it up where some of it goes to investing, some of it goes to debt. Because there's really no right or wrong path to financial freedom here. It just has to do with what are your goals. Maybe your goal is really to just pay off debt and to have a house and go home every day. I don't know. But I know for me, my goals and what I want to do goes beyond that. That's why I can't realistically say, oh, yeah, hubby, we're going to dump everything into debt. That's not my goal, is to pay off debt only. And, it can be very debilitating when you're only doing that and you don't see any of your, fruits of your labor or things come into fruition and things like that. So it's like, I just believe in balance with all of this stuff. I mean, this has been the year of saving because of COVID. I don't go to do much, so I have all this money. But before COVID, I was a traveler. I travel 5 to 6 times a year because that's my thing for
right.
being away and doing stuff with my family, with my friends, with, people that I care about and enjoy myself. That's my big spend, was travel.
So for me, I want to say like I definitely invest. I invested. I maxed out my not maxed out my 401k, but I contributed up to my match when I was paying off $80,000 debt before the age of 30. And I can't remember the number for sure, but I want to say it was like $50,000. I would have missed out on just growth if I hadn't been
Yep.
investing. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm like,
Exactly.
at least put money in your 401k when you're
At least.
paying off your debt. But I want to go back to like the generational wealth. So the easiest way to do that is something like Angie was saying. It's like, okay, have a custodial account for your kid for in Acorns or Stockpile or some type of stock investing, whether it's individual or in a not mutual fund, but like in a Roth IRA. If they are working, you have to have like actual working wages to have a Roth IRA as a minor or anybody, period. But that's something that you should do now. So if you have a 5-year-old, let's open up an Acorn just to get that feel. Set quarterly goals after that. So every 3 months, like, okay, like let me put $100 here in this account. Let me put something in Stockpile. Because Amazon 15 years, I think in 15 years, I think the growth has been like 1,800%. We don't know.
That is insane.
Yeah, we don't know what the next Amazon is going to be, right?
You don't.
You can start now with, figuring out what it is. And maybe it won't be Amazon, but it'll be better than them having nothing.
Exactly.
Like you just said.
Exactly. No, I was just going to say, and also Amazon, for those who are listening, it's projected to go to 5K. So if you do it now, you're still going to make about $2,000 off of one share. So I was like, I still would invest in Amazon today.
Yeah, and it's like, don't ever feel like you are behind the ball. So let me just say this. Like, I know the stock market tanked earlier this year with coronavirus. And right now, honestly, the stock market is doing better than the economy, which is kind of weird because we have all these layoffs, but it happened because of the bailouts. And honestly, the government didn't want us to believe that things were so bad. And like, let's put money back into these companies and make everything seem like it's okay. I personally believe there's going to be a wave 2, and I believe when everything shuts down again, and it's going to be another dip in the stock market because everyone's going to freak out. And like Angie said earlier, when she pulled her money out in the last recession, she was like, she wished she would have never did that, right? So if you're looking for stocks to go on sale, it's probably going to happen in the next few weeks or whatever, if wave 2 happens, right? So the biggest dips happen because what happened this year because of coronavirus out of fear and because people were like massively losing their jobs and it just started tanking. So if you're looking like I want to hold on to my money to buy low, which is really hard to do. But anyway, that's a whole other topic too. Probably gonna happen with wave two.
Yeah.
So you'll have another chance. But you, Angie, also mentioned like she's thinking about maybe buying a house and having it in her son's name as another investment. So if they do buy a house and get a 15-year mortgage, when he's 18, he'll have a house free and clear. What if he doesn't want to live there? That could be a rental property for him. It could be an extra $8 or $900 coming in a month. So this is the things we have to start thinking about if we really want to start building generational wealth and teaching our children like home ownership as early as possible. And then start making investments for them in stocks. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox right now. So if you have any comments or questions about anything I said, definitely drop them in the comments. But what I want to kind of ask a couple more questions before closing. How do you talk to your 3-year-old about money?
So we just have a money jar with him where we pretty much show him like when we have loose change and stuff like that, we put it in there. We also have fake money that we've been going through. So teaching him about like what's a dollar, $5, $10, $20, coins, currency basically. So that's kind of our way of showing him like baby steps on how to understand what money is. So he has all these little like he has a toy cash register. And so like he'll pretend that he's a store clerk. It even has an intercom. So he'll like say, Mommy, what do you want to buy? So we pick out the juice, it even has a fake little basket and stuff like that. So we do that with him. So that way he understands like, kind of the concept of money and what it means to buy things. Mm-hmm.
That is a great tip to do with your children. So that's a constant question is how can I talk to my kids about money, especially if they're so young? I always say as soon as they can talk and start asking, can you buy me? Can I have this?
Mm-hmm.
Start talking to them about money. We don't wait till they can actually talk to read to them. Like we start reading and you sing to your child when they're really young. They understand things a lot sooner than we think.
Very true.
Good tip from Angie from personally doing it right now with her 3-year-old is there's a money jar. Like kids have to be able to physically see something to understand it. So he understands, okay, money's going in here. I need money to buy things. Like the next step after that is like you have to work to get money. So these are simple ways to start talking to your kids about money. I think parents get overwhelmed and like, oh my God, I'm bad with money. I'm in debt. I don't know anything about it. I can't talk to them about money. But just these fundamental things can go such a long way.
Yep. It really does.
My final question for you is how are you creating a legacy? So I know you're talking to your son about money, you and your husband are, but how are you ensuring that you are leaving a legacy for your family?
Just by making sure that I keep us kind of educated and knowledgeable about things that come up. So one thing that we've mentioned before is the whole stock market and keeping up with trends and things in the market. I think, for example, like when this whole like lockdown happened, for example, interest rates really plummeted. So the feds had lowered the rates. So like housing, for example, the rates fell on housing. I knew when we bought our house that we had bought it at like, I think it was 4.3%, which is really high when you think about it, because now it's like barely hitting threes.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I refinanced our mortgage and I got our mortgage down to $300 less a month, which is a ton of money.
Oh,
and
yeah.
because remember now, because the mortgage rates have plummeted, housing has also increased in demand. So therefore housing has appreciated. So in the year that we've been here, our house has appreciated by like $20,000 to $25,000.
Wow.
So when we refinanced, we didn't even have to put any closing costs in because it got wrapped back up into the loan. So those are things that I know from reading a lot of finance blogs, and then also just how this all works. So I'll share this quick story and then I know we can wrap up soon, but when I was in college and I was going through my first recession as a young 21-year-old millennial, I was in this investment class and it was called investing. I think, yeah, it's called investing.
Right.
And so they give you virtual money. So the teacher gives us 25, it was $25,000 basically to invest in. And I knew that when the market goes down, gold goes up. So I dumped the entire thing into gold and made 1.5 million by the end of the semester
Wow.
because I know how market is. So when the trends, you start seeing trends, right? So now that the interest rates are low, it's a great time to refinance. Even if you have a house, look into it, ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. It's free to ask, in fact. It's a great time to buy. Of course, there's competition now because of the low interest rates. But if you can find a house that's doable and things like that, then that works too. So there's all these sort of things that you have to pay attention to from a market standpoint to see, that's how I create a legacy, by keeping up with the trends.
Well, now they know the importance. Now the viewers know the importance of reading books, and now we planted some seeds with them today about what to consider into. I want to thank you for coming on. I want to let everyone know that you see on the screen 10K with Amina. This is Financial Guardian's mission to teach 10,000 kids about entrepreneurship before the end of the year. We're already in Q4. It's the first day of Q4. It's October 1st. So we have like 3 months, 3 months fully to reach this goal. And so it's so important, like we're talking about generational wealth. This book explains to children how to monetize their talents, how to reach a financial goal. And people may say everyone can't be an entrepreneur, but everybody needs multiple streams of income. So this is planting that first seed with children. So be sure to support our mission and go to financialguardian.com and get a copy today. And once again, thank you so much, Angie, for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I will see you all next Thursday. I have another special guest. See you then. Bye.
Bye.